Showing on Law Weekly today, we look at issues surrounding the probe of the now suspended acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Ibrahim Magu. We talk to a senior advocate of Nigeria, Yinka Olumide Fushika. What's next for Mr. Magu is lawyer Wahab Shitu gives us an insight, plus our weekly recap of the top trending stories from the courtrooms. That's our lineup on this episode of the program. Hello and welcome. I'm Shola Sheyeli. For about 2 weeks, issues surrounding the probe of the now suspended acting chairman of the EFCC has hogged the headlines. Could this probe have been handled differently? What is the extent of the powers of a presidential panel? Can they even prosecute? What are some of the lessons from the whole issue? And what does it say about the country's war against graft? These were some of the questions I asked my guest, Mr. Olumide Fushika, who, like a lot of senior lawyers, has had to interact on behalf of his clients with the Antigraft Commission. I want to start with your general comments about the detention of Magu for 10 days, the drama that we've seen play out and its subsequent release. What do you make of all of it?
Somebody described it as tragic comedy, You know, every day in Nigeria there has to be something to engage and entertain the masses. Otherwise, they will go completely mad and maybe doing something else on the. So every day you have one drama from this government. If somebody is occupying that kind of position, and you are not arresting him for the purpose of going to prosecute him, it's not as if you conducted an investigation and concluded on it. A panel has been set up to investigate him, and you invite him. The normal thing is to invite him to come to that panel, but because we needed to be entertained as a country. Then they went to arrest. But he himself denied that he wasn't arrested. He was only invited and he went to honor the invitation. When he wasn't released, when he didn't leave, don't let me use the word release since he wasn't arrested. When he didn't then leave the venue and was kept somewhere or voluntarily leave the venue of the place that same night that he went to honor the invitation, it was then that it started becoming clear that contrary to what he himself said that he wasn't arrested, he may have been arrested. But if someone says he wasn't arrested, I don't think anybody should go about saying he was arrested. They use the statement that I was not arrested, I was invited. I read the letter written by Wahab Shitu. Everything he said in every complaint he made in that letter was what is normal operating procedure, standard operating procedure under Magu. They will arrest you, they will keep you there. When you go there to talk, they invite you. When they have finished arresting you and whatever, they may not even ask you any question for hours, days. They just keep you there. Is that not what you experienced? Then after that, you are there with them. They've made the announcement that, oh, you are there, so person. Then they will be releasing fake, false information. The person has stolen this billion, we have done this. Is that not what he's going through now? So when we say that, when you are occupying these offices, try and do the right thing, because you never can say whether you yourself will be the victim tomorrow. A judge that is sitting in justice over, people accused, or even if it's civil today, should remember that no condition is permanent. That judge may also be an accused person tomorrow. So when you are sitting in judgment over others, try and do it the right way. So they are releasing information. He had the property in Dubai. He's done Brody change. He's done this. The man has issued a statement to say all these things are lies, and he's challenging them to prove it.
Talk to us about what the law says on the extent of the powers of the presidential panel.
Is this a judicial tribunal of inquiry? You have EFCC, you have ICPC, you have police. What Magu is being accused of is official corruption. Ordinarily, you have ICPC there. That's a complaint that should be made to the ICPC, that is a statutory body set up to handle those things. Send it to the ICPC, and they have to go and investigate it. You don't need to go and set up a special panel. All these ad hoc bodies are, as far as I'm concerned, that committee is not. You had when Magus' lawyer applied for bail to the police, and the police said, we are not keeping him. Which law sets up that panel? No law. If you want to set up a judicial commission of inquiry, you do it properly. This one is a panel for what? You then brought people from all over the place, police, this, that, to come and investigate allegations and all that. So I really don't understand the legal legitimacy of that committee. But maybe the president just set it up as his own whatever, just to find out facts about whether this allegation is correct or not correct. But in that case, he doesn't have any power to detain anybody. I don't know what will come out of it. Can the panel charge anybody after they completed their investigation now?
This whole issue surrounding Magus' release, do you think that it's helping the anti-graft war in any way?
I think it's, when I described it as tragicomedy the other time, I think it's not, other than the entertainment value, the Nollywood value of it, What do you think people looking at us, they are so-called our foreign partners, let me put it that way. What do you think they would think of us? The head of our whatever agency is, we didn't need that drama. He's acting chairman. If you don't want to confirm him, if there are issues with him, let him go, put someone there. They've messed up with all these moves now. I don't want to know the political motive or whatever it is in it. Don't forget, take the fate of the other persons that have been removed now, about 12 or so of them, There's no petition against any one of them. They are not under any investigation. Magus' own is, okay, there's a petition, and we're investigating him. These other 12 or 10 or 11 persons, is there a petition against them? Are they under investigation? Don't forget that the commission has a board of 25 persons, if I'm not up to 25 persons or so. What's the work of that board? The law that sets off the FCC says disciplinary matter, staff disciplinary matter, the jurisdiction over it belongs to the commission, the board of the EFCC. Now, no petition against them. They are not under investigation, including one that was confirmed by the Senate. Then somebody just wakes up somewhere and says, all of you are gone. What signal does that tell the international community? It is that we are not serious. You see, when the next report of Transparency International will come out, all these things that you see happening now is certain to have an impact in how we are rated. Ad hocism, let me put it that way. Why don't you follow the laid-down procedure? If any of them has committed any offense, there's a procedure within the EFCC that they can be disciplined. Somebody just wakes up one day and says, I'm removing them. In other words, you beheaded the commission. Let me put it that way. You beheaded it. So anybody wanting to engage with us will say, anything can happen in Nigeria anytime. There's no certainty about anything. So we need to change our mentality as a people. We need to become, I would say, irreverent in some ways. The respect we have for we have too much respect. And some people will say, okay, am I saying that people should be rude now to people in authority, to political figures, whether it's religion, even age? You understand what I'm saying? Some people will just, because of age, they know what I'm doing is wrong, but they cannot come and tell me. They say maybe people will say they are rude and whatever for telling me that what I'm doing is wrong, a junior person. I think Imago is not our problem. Well, it's just let me put it, it's a manifestation of the bigger problem. We as a people must determine that whichever office we are put, whatever position, we are called to serve our country.
You've also mentioned something about the procedure. So let's look at the procedure that the panel is employing. There are those who condemn the secrecy in which the panel is sitting. Others say that if it's a fact-finding panel, the media should have been allowed to cover the proceedings. What do you think?
If you are investigating someone, it's not a public, it's not a spectacle for the public. That's not what it's supposed to do. Investigation is supposed to be discreet. Okay. It is when you have completed your... Did you hear that FBI or whatever was investigating Hush Puppy? There was no such thing. The day they were ready to arrest him and take him before a court, they did so. They, he immediately was landing in America. The charge was already prepared. He was there. Investigation, police investigation anywhere in the world is not supposed to be something you invite journalists and we begin to entertain ourselves about, because you hear a lot. It's a verification process. You damage people's name permanently. Permanently. Look at it the way it is now. Is Magus' position, is it tenable again?
If perchance Magus is returned back to office, do you think he will do things differently?
If they return him to that office, how is he going to face his colleagues outside the country? They've rendered him, they've damaged him. They've damaged his reputation, they've dragged him in the mud and all that. Nothing that the panel can say. If the panel says, oh, he's not guilty of this, whatever, and all that, the aura surrounding that office, don't you see all over they even call him Hush Magu now, Anybody going to him, he's lost the respect. It may not be due to his own whatever, but the way they've conducted these affairs, has rendered his position untenable. He can't. In fact, if I were Magu, if I'm told to go, if I'm found not wanting, I would thank my God and say, thank you so much. If I'm told to go back, no, I've had enough. He should not, he himself should resign. It's not, how would he be effective in that office?
Where do you stand on this divide? Some people want total independence for the EFCC, while others think that there should be some form of supervision, maybe from the Attorney General of the Federation. Where do you stand? The
Lord Assessor of the EFCC also gave it prosecutorial powers. So if they've made up their mind within their own prosecutorial team that we are charging Mr. A, the EFCC cannot say, the Attorney General cannot say, don't charge. When they charge, they've done their own duty. If the Attorney General is of a different mind, the Constitution permits him to go to court and do his own duty, to say, no, I'm taking over. In the public interest, there's a public interest element involved in this thing that must be fulfilled, and therefore, I'm taking it over. Nobody can stop him from doing that. But to say that the EFCC is under his supervision, or that Magu, or whoever is occupying that office, is insubordinate because he's not taking instruction from him. You cannot be EFCC chairman without being insubordinate. Insubordination means being clear as to your goal. We have investigated. Nobody can tell you don't investigate Mr. A. The law says has given you power to do so. Nobody can say after investigating and you believe that you have good reasons to charge the person to court to say don't charge. That's within your own remit. If you have done your work and everybody can see it that you've done your work and you are prosecuting and the Attorney General comes and says, I'm taking it over, he has superior, because it's the Constitution that gave him that power to say you can take over, you can continue, you can discontinue, you can do anything. And it doesn't apply to EFCC alone. It applies to all the prosecutorial agencies in the public interest. If the Attorney General feels there's something of public interest involved in any part, and that he could take it over because he feels that the case is so serious that the competence of the resource available, legal resource available to the EFCC prosecution team is weak. Let's support you with, He could take it over for any other reason, He could even take it over for corrupt reasons. He may not express it. He could take it over because he has personal reason for doing that, and then he'll present it as if it's public interest, He can do, but he cannot say, oh, EFCC, don't do your work. So this idea being peddled around that the ministry, the EFCC is a parastater or something under the Ministry of Justice and the Office of the Attorney General is not true. It's not correct. EFCC, the way it is independent. That's the reason why the chairman has to be, the president nominates, the Senate confirms. The secretary, the same thing.
Welcome back. Mr. Magus' lawyer, Wahab Shitu, also spoke to Law Weekly about some of the allegations against his client and his attitude to his probe.
From the perspective of Mr. Magu, his experience has been quite unpleasant. And I'll give you reasons for that. Ordinarily, he would have thought that he would be given an opportunity to be formally invited and given time to report so that he could come with, prepared with all the necessary documents that will assist the work of the panel. But on the contrary, he was just accosted and asked to report. That in itself is not good enough. Secondly, after reporting, he was taken into custody. And he has been in custody since then. And apart from being in custody, he didn't have opportunity of access to documents, access to the allegations for which he was being called upon to answer. So, to that extent, we will say it is an unpleasant experience. But his own approach to the issue is that, nobody is above the law. No matter how big anybody is, the law is bigger. He's taking his experience with philosophical calmness. He's more concerned with, proving his innocence. He wants to be afforded fair hearing because he believes he's innocent. As I speak to you, and this is well known to everybody, in terms of achievements, his achievement is unrivaled. In terms of recoveries, it's unrivaled. In terms of in terms of convictions, as a sitting chairman of EFCC, he has posted stellar achievements. So he's holding his head very high. But in spite of that, if he's been probed, he's not opposed to the probe. Because he believes that no matter how big anybody is, the law is bigger. And he believes that if he's for waging the war against corruption, then he should also make himself accountable. And so he's not taking his probe with any bitterness. Most of the allegations against him, as published in the social media and newspapers, are blatant falsehood. Blatant falsehood. And you recall that we had cause to write the panel, to set the record straight, because most people just sit. Some people just sit in the quiet corner of their rooms and fabricate stories against Magu. None of the allegations is true. You understand me? Well, when he had the opportunity to appear before the panel, he told the panel that most of his actions are documented. The sectional X should be invited. He was running a team. He wasn't running a one-man show. There are sectional heads in charge of access, in charge of audit, in charge of all aspects of covered by the investigation. And I thank the Honorable Justice Salami panel for trying to, for his efforts to uphold justice. They have invited all of those people, and all of those people invited are now coming up with documents to support, the work of Magu. So there's no cause for alarm at all. All those allegations are just being peddled by some people who want to see. When you fight corruption, corruption has a way of also fighting back. So this is the process. I think in a democracy, we should allow this kind of process to go on. Nobody should be above the law. So what the administration is doing is even commendable. If Magu can be brought to investigation, then nobody is above this kind of process. So, and it is not a setback for the anti-corruption war. It's a major plus. At the end of the day, when the facts are known to everybody, and Magu is exonerated, what stops him from going back to his seat? He's just suspended. And it's also okay that when an investigation is being conducted into your affairs, you step aside and allow the investigation to go on. And I think we should be very fair to the Salami party. Salami is a man of sterling integrity. He has gone through this kind of process before. He was also, put in this kind of way. And he came out unscathed. he came out with his integrity intact. So he's willing to. That's what he did when he ordered the release of Magus from detention, even though the panel was not responsible for the detention of Magus. He says so. But since the Inspector General of Police came out to say that the IG was not responsible for the detention of Magus, he said, okay, we invited him. If you say you are not the one keeping him, then young man, go home and come back when we need you with your defense intact. So we should commend, we should salute the work of the Salami panel for trying to look for the facts. So Magus is not against the probe, it's not against the Salami panel, it's not against this administration. He's fully in support of what is going on. But what he is asking for is that copies of the allegations against him be given to him, which is also fair. If you are accused of any offense, you should be given copies of the allegations so that you can appropriately respond.
And just before we go, here's a recap of some legal stories we're tracking.
We begin with the report that the Supreme Court has held that virtual court sittings as of today are not unconstitutional. With this declaration, a 7-man panel of the court, led by Justice Olabode Rhodes Viver, dismissed the fear said to be entertained by many judges as to the constitutionality of the remote hearings in the country. In his comment, Justice Rhodes Viver maintained that the chief judges of the state that had issued practice direction to provide for virtual sittings when convenient had the duty to enforce the directive. This comments were made during the hearing of separate suits filed by the Attorneys General of Lagos and Ekiti State on the adoption of remote hearings by judges in their state. The panel described the suit as speculative and academic as they did not disclose how virtual proceedings had injured the interest or right of anyone. This then made the two attorneys general to withdraw the suit, after which the court struck it out. In another suit, the Supreme Court dismissed the appeal filed by a governorship candidate on the platform of the People's Democratic Party in Bayelsa State, Timi Alaibe, the emergence of Governor Doye Diri as the party's candidate in the last year's election. A 5-man panel of the Apex Court, also led by Justice Olabode Rhodes Viver, dismissed the appeal. Alaibe's lawyer, Chief Ifedayo Adedipe, withdrew the appeal after the panel members pointed his attention to the fact that the issues raised in the appeal were not about the primary election, but about an internal affair of the party which the court lacks jurisdiction to hear. In Lagos, the Court of Appeal has struck out Governor Udom Emmanuel's name from 4 out of the 10-count charge filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) against the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Paul Usoro. Justice Bello Aliyu struck out the Akwa Ibom State Governor's name in the 4 counts in which he was specifically named. In the charge, the EFCC claimed that Usoro converted and laundered 1.4 billion naira in connivance with the governor. Though Governor Emmanuel was named in 4 counts of the charge, he was however not listed as a defendant, as the Antigraft agency indicated that he is currently constitutionally immune against criminal prosecution. In 2019, the Federal High Court in Lagos had dismissed an application filed by Governor Udom seeking to quash the entire charge preferred against Usoro on the grounds that he was not a party to the suit. Dissatisfied with the ruling, the governor approached the appeal court, which has now unanimously ruled in his favor. Still in Lagos, a Federal High Court has dismissed a move by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) seeking the final forfeiture of 2 houses in Ilorin, Kwara State belonging to a former Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki. In a ruling on the issue, Justice Rilwan Aikawa held that the contention of the EFCC that the property was acquired with illegal funds was based on mere suspicion. The court also held that the evidence placed before it was to the effect that the property was substantially financed with money paid to Saraki as a former governor in line with the Kwara State government and deputy governor payment of pension law. The court therefore discharged the interim order for forfeiture it had earlier granted in favor of the EFCC on 2nd December 2019 and subsequently dismissed the Commission's application for final forfeiture of the property. And we round off with the report that another judge of the Federal High Court has sentenced the former executive director at the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, Captain Ezekiel Bala Agaba, to 7 years imprisonment for laundering 1.5 billion naira. Justice Ibrahim Buba handed down the sentence after finding the defendant guilty and convicting him on a 7-count charge of conversion and criminal breach of trust. In another related case, the same court dismissed a suit bordering on an alleged 34 billion naira fraud filed by the federal government against the former Director General of NIMASA, Patrick Akpobolo-Kemi, a company, Global West Vessel Specialist Limited, linked to a former Niger Delta militant leader, Government Ekpemu Polo, popularly known as Tom Polo, and 7 others.
And here's where we adjourn till next week. Don't forget that you can watch again this episode of the program and past episodes on our YouTube channel. I'm Shola Shieli. Thank you for watching.